Kung tayo, meron tayong diary na sinusulat natin lahat ng mga ganap natin sa life, like Dear Diary, I'm so happy today and kilig much because I saw my crush. Di ba may mga ganun tayo? Of course, di pa patalo si accounting. So guys, welcome to another episode of Accounting Tutorial. Today's video will talk about the journal entry. And this is just the part 1. Again, I am Micah and hoping again that this video will be useful on your accounting journey. So last time we've discussed the debit and credit. So debit is on the left side and credit naman is on the right side. We've also learned the normal balances of account. So let's have a recap kasi ito yung gagamitin natin later to journalize transactions. Again, just remember the term D.E.A.D for the accounts with normal balances of debit, or in other words, accounts that increase when we debit. And term na C.L.E.R for accounts with normal balances of credit, or in other words, accounts that increase when we credit. Okay, for debit side, ang expenses, asset, dividends, and drawings, these are increased when we debit. Therefore, kung gusto naman natin siya i-decrease, dapat i-credit natin siya. Tama? For credit side naman, yung liabilities, equity, and revenue, these are increased when we credit. Therefore, kung gusto naman natin to mag-decrease, dinidebit natin siya. Okay? So, don't forget the D.E.A.D and C.L.E.R. For detailed discussion of debit and credit and the normal balances of account, just click the link on the description box. Okay? So now that we understand it already, we can now analyze and record transactions through what we call the journal entry. So what is journal entry? So journal entry, it is a record of the business transactions in the accounting books of a business. So ito lang yung mga record or diary na mga ganap or mga transactions ng business natin. So the process of recording is called journalizing. And here, the transaction is analyzed to determine which account is to be debited and which account is to be credited. And the pro forma of the journal entry is shown as follows. So we have the date, particulars, the PR or the posting reference, the debit, and the credit. So yung date, of course, ito yung date ng transaction kung kailan nangyari. Particulars naman, the name of the accounts to be debited and the name of the accounts to be credited. And usually, the name of the debit account is written first, then followed by the name of the accounts to be credited. So, we usually indent the credit account and it has been a practice in accounting. And lastly, the explanation or narration of the transactions. So, dito, dinidescribe mo lang kung ano yung nangyari sa transactions. Yung PR naman, or yung posting reference, we only indicate a posting reference when transactions have already been posted to the ledger accounts. Yung ledger accounts natin, or posting to the ledger accounts, is the second step in recording transactions. Okay? So, debit, ay yung debit, the amount to be debited. And credit naman, dito yung amount to be credited. So, let's assume Micah opened a milk tea business. At ang name daw ng milk tea business niya ay account tea siya. So, the following transactions occur during the month. Okay, game? But before that pala, to journalize transactions, these are the 2 simple steps that we need to follow. So, ito yung mga kailangan natin gawin for every transaction. First, we have to figure out the accounts affected. So, in analyzing transactions, we have to identify ano accounts ba yung gagamitin natin. Pag nalaman na natin what are the affected accounts or what are the accounts affected, let's identify kung nag-increase ba siya or nag-decrease so that we will know which account should we debit and which account should we credit. Of course, using our guide, yung dalawang important terms na sinabi ko kanina na D.E.A.D tsaka yung C.L.E.R. Okay? So, yan. Transaction 1. On March 1 daw, Micah made a cash investment amounting to 300,000. So, nag-invest daw si Micah ng 300,000 for her milk tea business na account tea shop. So, first, let's put the date, March 1. Now, sabi natin, the first step is to figure out what are the affected accounts. So, take note also, guys, when we are recording transactions, we are always in the point of view or in the shoes of the business, not the owner. Meaning, ano ba ang na-receive at nag-increase sa business at ano ba ang nawala at nag-decrease sa business. Okay? So, going back, since there was an investment in a form of cash, it means na ang business natin ay nagkaroon ng or naka-receive siya ng cash amounting to 300,000. Therefore, the account or the affected account for this transaction is cash. Tama? The next question is, what should we do to cash? Are we going to debit it or are we going to credit it? Okay? So, using our guide below, yung D.E.A.D na C.L.E.R, which we have discussed earlier, and yung nakikita nyo sa baba na medyo malabo. Sabi natin, cash is an asset. And to increase the asset, anong ginagawa natin? We debit it. So, let's put an amount of cash in the debit column. Okay? Now question, cash lang ba ang affected account? Syempre hindi. Kasi 'di ba pinag-aralan din natin before yung concept of double entry system, which means na for every transaction there are at least two accounts that are affected. And the total debits must always equal the total credits. If that case pala, we need to find out what is the other account affected by this transaction. And as you can see, we only have the account debited. Wala pa tayong credit. Okay? Kasabi lang natin kanina that the debits must always equal the credits. Tama? So, since the business received an investment, it means yung equity natin ay nag-increase. Therefore, the other affected account for this transaction is equity. And we use capital as the appropriate account name. So, lagay natin Micah capital. And we've learned to increase the equity or para mag-increase yung equity or capital natin, anong ginagawa natin? Kinikredit daw natin siya. Okay? So, lagay natin ulit yung amount ng Micah capital dun sa credit column. Now, let's put some explanation or narration of the event or the transactions. In this case, nilagay ko investment of Micah to open business. Pero kayo bahala kung anong gusto niyo lagay. Basta simple, i-describe nyo lang yung nangyari sa transactions. For PR naman or posting reference, we've mentioned that we only indicate a posting reference when transactions have already been posted to the ledger accounts, which is the second step in recording transactions. Okay? Since what we are doing is just the first step in recording or yung journalizing na tinatawag, it means na dapat wala pa tayong ilagay na PR or posting reference. But for purposes of discussion, lagyan na lang muna natin siya, okay? So, nilagay ko na lang dyan J1 dun sa reference. Kasi, ito yung transaction number 1 natin, okay? Balance pa ang debit at credit natin? Syempre, balance. So, we're done for this transaction. Okay, on March 2, Micah purchased table and chairs for 15,000 cash. So, bumili na tayo ng tables and chairs. So, first, let's put the date, March 2. Now, let's figure out naman what are the accounts affected. Okay? So, what did the business receive? Ano ba yung na-receive ng business? Siyempre, tables and chairs kasi nga bumili daw tayo ng tables and chairs. And tables and chairs is an asset. Okay? And the appropriate account title for that is furnitures and fixtures. Therefore, the affected account for this transaction is furnitures and fixtures. And sabi natin, ang furnitures and fixtures is an asset. Nabubulo na ako. And to increase the asset, ano ulit yung ginagawa natin? We debit it. So, let's put the amount of furnitures and fixtures in the debit column. Okay? Again, yung asset, guys, siya yung letter A dun sa D.E.A.D. And we mentioned kanina, yung D.E.A.D ay accounts with normal balances of debit. So, tama lang tayo na dinebit natin yung furnitures and fixtures. Okay? And in exchange of tables and chairs, the company used cash. Tama? Meaning there was a decrease of cash. So, how are we going to record the decrease of cash? Sabi natin, to increase the asset, we have to debit it. Tama? Therefore, to decrease an asset, ano naman yung ginagawa natin? Siyempre, we credit it naman yung kabaliktaran niya lang. So, let's put some explanation or narration of the transaction. Nilagay ko dyan, purchase of furnitures and fixtures. In the PR, nilagay ko na lang J2 since this is our second transactions. Okay? On March 4, bought supplies for cash amounting to 4,500. So, bumili daw tayo ng mga supplies. So, let's put the date first. And let's figure out what are the accounts affected. So, ano nga ba ang na-receive ng business? Syempre, supplies, kasi nga bumili tayo ng supplies. Therefore, the affected account for this transaction is supplies. So, how are we going to record it? Debit ba siya or credit? Since supplies in an asset and we've mentioned to increase the asset, anong ginagawa natin? Dinidebit natin siya. Therefore, let's put the amount of supplies under the debit column na 4,500. And in exchange of supplies, ano ba ang nawala sa company? Since we bought supplies for cash, syempre, nabawasan yung cash ng business, tama? And to decrease the asset or cash, sabi natin, kinikredit natin siya. So let's put the amount of cash in the credit column to decrease the cash. Now, let's put some explanation then, tsaka yung narration of transaction. Nilagay ko na lang dyan to record supplies purchase. And yung PR number, nilagay ko na lang J3 since this is our third transactions. On March 5 naman, sabi dyan, bought computer from Lenovo amounting to 25,000 on account. Okay? So first, let's put the date, March 5, and now let's figure out what are the affected accounts. So what did the company or the business receive? Siyempre, computer, kasi bumili daw tayo ng computer. And the appropriate account title for that is equipment. Therefore, the affected account for this transaction is equipment. Tama? So, how are we going to record it? Debit ba siya or credit? Equipment is an asset. Tama? And we mentioned to increase the asset. Anong ginagawa natin? Dinidebit natin. So, paulit-ulit lang tayo, diba? Therefore, let's put the amount of equipment under the debit column to increase the asset. And in exchange of computer, ano ba ang nawala sa company? Since we bought equipment on account and not on cash, it means na walang nawala sa company na cash. Tama? Pero may nadagdag. Since on account siya, it means may nadagdag na utang. Therefore, the another affected account is liabilities. And the appropriate account title for that is accounts payable. And we've mentioned to increase the liabilities. Kung gusto natin mag-increase ang liabilities, anong ginagawa natin? Tin kayo dun sa C.L.E.R. We credit it. Okay? So, let's put the amount of accounts payable in the credit column to increase the liabilities. Gets? Yan. So, lagay na tayo ng explanation or narration of the transaction. Nilagay ko dyan, bought computer equipment. And the PR number, nilagay ko na lang J4 kasi this is our fourth transactions. Balance pa yung debit and credit? Yes, balance siya na 25,000. So, on March 7, sold milk tea to Alex Company worth 15,000 but 8,000 is still uncollected. So, nagbenta daw tayo ng milk tea kay Alex Company for 15,000 pero yung 8,000 daw, hindi pa daw nila binabayaran. So, first, let's put the date and let's figure out what are the affected accounts. So, what did the company receive? Dahil may sales tayo, we have revenue. Therefore, the affected account for this transaction is revenue. And we've mentioned to increase the revenue. Anong ginagawa natin? Using the D.E.A.D and the C.L.E.R, we credit it. Tama? So, let's put the amount of revenue amounting to 15,000 in the credit column. Now, what are the other accounts affected? Ano ba yung mga ibang accounts na affected by this transaction? Since nakabenta tayo, it means naka-receive ng cash yung company. Tama? Pero question, lahat ba ng 15,000 sales natin, cash ang binayad sa atin? Hindi, kasi sabi dyan, 8,000 is still uncollected. Therefore, there are two more accounts that are affected by this transaction. First, we have the cash. And second, and the other one is yung collectibles natin from the customers. And the appropriate account title for that is accounts receivable. Okay? Accounts receivable, this is simply the utang sa atin ng mga customers natin. Therefore, this is an asset. Okay? Since cash and receivables are asset, and sabi natin to increase an asset, ang ginagawa natin, we debit it. Therefore, let's put the amount of cash of 7,000, dahil 7,000 lang daw yung binayad sa atin, and 8,000 for accounts receivable in the debit column. Now, let's put some explanation or narration of the transaction. Yan, nilagay ko na lang to record sales. And of course, PR, nilagay ko na lang J5 kasi ito yung fifth transaction natin. Okay? So next, on March 12, borrowed 100,000 from Metrobank and signed a 90-day note. Okay? So, dahil siguro nagkulang na tayo ng cash, kaya nangutang daw tayo kay Metrobank amounting to 100,000 pesos through a promissory note. So, first, let's put the date and let's figure out what are the affected accounts. So, what did the business receive? Of course, cash dahil nangutang nga tayo sa bangko. Tama? Therefore, the affected account for this transaction is cash. And we've mentioned, paulit-ulit natin sinasabi, to increase the asset or to increase the cash, ang ginawa natin, we debit it. So, let's put the amount of cash amounting to 100,000 in the debit column. Now, what are the other accounts affected? Ano pa ba ibang accounts affected natin? Since nangutang tayo, it means the liability of the business was increased. And sabi natin, to increase the liabilities, okay, nandyan yung C.L.E.R, ayun yung guide natin. To increase the liabilities, ang ginagawa natin, we credit it. Tama? Question, accounts payable pa rin ba ang appropriate account title for this transaction? Accounts payable pa ba? No. Since we signed a promissory note, the appropriate account title this time naman is notes payable. So, let's put the amount of notes payable amounting to 100,000 in the credit column. Yan, lagyan natin ng explanation or narration of the transaction. Nilagay ko na lang cash loan from Metrobank. And of course, the PR number, nilagay ko J6 kasi number 6 transaction natin to. So, that's it for today muna guys. Sumasakit nila lang muna ko kasalita. Pero may naiwan pa akong additional 10 sample transactions which I will discuss on the part 2 of this journal entry session natin. So, don't miss it guys. Marami pa tayong mga bagong accounts na matututunan sa part 2 ng video tutorial. Thank you so much guys for watching and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. If you have any questions or topic na gusto nyo i-discuss, just comment below. Try natin gawa ng video tutorial. God bless and see you next time.